They say knowledge is power, but what if it reveals a horrifying truth about us? Tonight, we will dive into the forbidden archives and answer the crucial question: are we truly the doomed generation? Hello YouTube, Omar Marzouk here. And conspiracy folks, beware, because today we are about to bust some theories about the so-called doomed generation. I know what you're thinking. Climate change, economic instability, the rise of AI. Every single activist almost refers to these when talking about our generational extinction. It's all pretty cliche. Actually, the true threat is infinitely more dangerous, and it was prophesied long ago. Let's take a look. According to ancient hieroglyphics like Maxim 7 and Coffin Text 1135, those defined the drowning generation, they said, "The youth of today are filled with pride and ignorance. They care not for the wisdom of the past. They pursue fleeting pleasures and neglect that which truly matters." Sounds familiar? Okay, let's be realistic. Every generation is thought of to be the worst. Boomers believed that rock and roll will bring out devils, while our parents believed that we will amount to nothing because we played video games. But we are still here and thriving. Or are we? The truth is, we were collectively poisoned. The core essence of what makes us humans is continuously fading away. And now I will take you to the very lab where this poison was first initiated. Hold on. I hate to interrupt, but first we have to get our terminologies on point. So, term number one, Gen Z. This is us, the cool boys and girls born between 1995 and 2012. Term number two, generational evolution. This means that every generation grow up and mature to become their own thing. Think of it like this: every generation have their own music, their own fashion, and even their own slang. This process is a natural phenomenon. It's just like a pendulum swinging back and forth. But what happens when this pendulum swings a little bit seemingly too far? At this point, the previous generation discusses matters with the new and now mature generation, and they find a happy medium, and the pendulum starts swinging again for the new and upcoming age. However, us, Gen Z, we are not just swinging the pendulum, we are launching it into outer space. Back to you. And here is the lab. A lot of you would refer to it as a production studio. This production studio in particular is called the good old days. Oh yeah, the good old days. Times where cartoons were wholesome. But those days of innocence were just a smokescreen, not but a clever way to lure parents into a false sense of security. Parents would think, hey, my kids are watching cartoons, they're learning and having fun, what could possibly go wrong? Well, it started subtly. A little harmless flirting in Rugrats, a budding crush in Hey Arnold, but that was just the foot in the door. Then the gloves were off. The clips became more suggestive, with characters engaging in overtly sexual behaviors and embracing certain political ideologies. Soon, cartoons weren't just about ABCs and 1-2-3s. They were about boys chasing girls and everyone obsessing over who's dating what. Education? It took a backseat to hormones. And then a generation of young viewers was primed for the next phase of the agenda. By the time we hit our teens, cartoons were not cool anymore. If you were still watching, you were a social pariah. So the new shows that catered to our age group were full-blown propaganda machines. They inserted issues like gender identity and political biases, but not to educate or encourage critical thinking. No, they presented a single, one-sided narrative, spoon-feeding viewers pre-packaged doctrines and ideologies, and that's how cartoons clearly became tools of mass manipulation. Parents became bumbling idiots, authority figures were vilified, and the traditional values were tossed out of the window like yesterday's newspaper. Now you are probably asking, what does all of that have to do with the doom of our generation? However, the question you should be asking is, why is that relentless focus on trying to brainwash us as kids? It surely wasn't about selling Happy Meals. I think the answer is control. We humans crave thrills. Everything from horror movies to bungee jumping, we love experiencing the unknown. But we always had a safety net that protected us from some questionable matters. This safety net is called a moral compass. That compass did not align well with a lot of the world-shaping corporate visionaries. Those people were always at a loss, especially when the boomers, the generation before us, rejected buying into their ideologies and products. So, they thought. The adults, they seem too set in their ways. So let us reshape the youth, and we will reshape the future! And hence, the generational doom. You see, a lot of us have values and standards that we think are coded into our DNA by birth, but a lot of what we stand and even fight strongly about was primed into our heads. Let's take a look at marriage, for example. Okay, the marriage topic can demonstrate the harms of cartoon propaganda in 3 stages. 1. The rates. In the US, marriage plummeted from 72% in 1960 to 51% in 2020, and the age of marriage today is at record highs. Gen Z is marrying less and later. The cause. From childhood, Gen Z was fed a steady diet of idealized relationships. TV shows like Friends, The Office, and How I Met Your Mother portrayed love as a one-dimensional journey that always ends in a picture-perfect romance. The reality is, these images have set an impossible standard, making healthy relationships harder for Gen Z, as a 2015 study in mass communications confirmed. But even when Gen Zers find their match, they shrug and say, "We're focusing on our careers and financial stability before settling down." In 2020, a study called Marriage and Cohabitation in the US found that Gen Z have been delaying marriage, seeking the desire for personal freedom. For Gen Z, the constitution of marriage became a luxury, and for some, even unnecessary. Stage 3. It gets dark. Gen Z's experimental and unstable approach to settling down resulted in individuals stranded with the fear of commitment filling them. And of course, with the lack of married, stable houses and hearts, Gen Z is often described as a snowball of anxiety and depression, drowning in the smallest of threats. Weak, scared, stressed, and living on mental medications. And it all boiled down to the childhood influences. A 2010 study in the Journal of Applied Social Psychology proved how cartoon characters affected the emotional, behavioral, and even the career choices of adults. As Mark Twain once said, it's easier to fool people than to convince them that they have been fooled. Robbed of a steady and slow growth beside our elders, we became the first generation to live in a world where the line between the right and the wrong is a blur. So let us analyze the blueprint that was prepared for us in order to realize that we have been deceived, so that we could shred the concept of the doomed generation. I started this episode with "We are thriving." Yes, I believe we are a generation filled with innovation and resilience. Even our dances go viral overnight. So I think with a little bit of guidance, we can rewire our brains. Going back to the basics would allow our moral compass to unblur again. And this channel, Lifelens, its main purpose is to help you find yourself and take control over your own destiny. So if you have questions about the world, send them my way. And finally, a lot say that our generation is doomed. Well, we beg to differ. Until next time, peace. It's all pretty cliche,